All right, let's just jump right in. We're going to explore a pretty provocative idea today. The notion that the way pretty much everyone hires people is fundamentally completely wrong. I mean, this quote from the Harvard Business Review just gets right to the heart of it. It's a bold claim, right? Businesses are spending more money than ever, doing more hiring than ever, and getting worse results. But as you're about to see, the data, well, it kind of backs it up. So, just how much are we talking about? Well, get this, over $4,000. That's the average cost to fill just one single job in the United States. And for a manager, that number is way, way higher. That's a huge investment every single time. Now let's talk about scale. That massive number you see, 66 million. That's how many jobs get filled in the US every single year. So we're not talking about some small niche problem here. This is a massive, economy-wide process that's costing billions upon billions. And here's the real paradox, the part that's kind of crazy. If you ask CEOs what keeps them up at night, they'll tell you it's hiring. Finding good people is priority number one. And yet, for their number one priority, most companies have absolutely no idea if their incredibly expensive process actually works. It's like spending a fortune on an ad campaign and never checking to see if you sold more stuff. It just doesn't make any sense. So you've got to be asking, how did we end up in this mess? Well, to understand the chaos of today, we actually have to go back and see how things used to be done. The way companies hired back in the post-World War II era, it's like a different universe. Back then, things were methodical. It was all internal. They did skills tests, real interviews that could go on for a week. But today, it's the Wild West. The whole thing is outsourced. You have algorithms just scanning for keywords, and recruiters spending a fortune chasing after passive candidates. People who aren't even looking for a job. And the core of that whole shift really boils down to one thing: promoting from within. It used to be that almost 9 out of 10 jobs above entry level were filled by people who already worked there. You got hired, you got trained, and you climbed the career ladder. Today, that number has absolutely plummeted to a third, maybe even less. That ladder is basically gone. And here's the real kicker. All this frantic, expensive hiring from the outside, it's not happening because businesses are growing like crazy. Nope. It's happening because they can't keep the people they already have. A stunning 95% of hiring is just to replace someone who left, often because they looked around and realized there was no path forward inside the company. So what does this chaotic system actually look like for the managers and, the poor job applicants who are stuck in the middle of it all? It's a total mess. You've got companies putting up phantom jobs that don't even exist just to collect resumes. So you spend all this time crafting the perfect application, send it into a black hole where it gets scanned by some software that's just hunting for keywords, and perfectly good candidates get tossed out. Meanwhile, an entire industry of vendors has popped up to sell all these complicated solutions. And some of these solutions sound like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie. I'm talking about tools that use voice recognition, or analyze your body language in a video interview, or scrape your social media for clues, all supposedly powered by machine learning. But there's one huge catch. The multi-billion-dollar question is, does any of this stuff actually work? Does it help find better employees, or is it just a coin flip with fancy tech? And the answer, unbelievably, is that we have no idea. Because most companies, they don't even bother to check. Only about a third of them make any kind of attempt to see if their hiring process, with all its bells and whistles, actually brings in good people. It's wild. Okay, so the system is broken. It's expensive, it's chaotic, and nobody knows if it's working. So what's the alternative? Let's get into some clear, actionable ways to actually fix it. The fix is basically a 5-step process that's rooted in, common sense. It starts by looking inside your own company first. Then you design jobs with realistic requirements, not an impossible wish list. That naturally helps you attract a smaller, more qualified group of applicants. Then you actually test for the skills they'll need. And the last piece is to completely revamp the interview process. Now, this idea of attracting fewer applicants, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's really powerful. Instead of selling this fantasy of a perfect job, you give people a realistic job preview. You show them the tough parts, the challenges, the daily grind. And what happens is the people who aren't a good fit, they just drop out on their own. It saves everybody time and leaves you with people who actually want the real job. And what about testing for skills? Well, check this out. It turns out employers are nearly twice as likely to test candidates for drugs than for the actual skills they need to do the job. It really makes you stop and ask where their focus is, right? And finally, the interview. That's where all the bias and gut feelings come into play. The fix is surprisingly simple. Stop winging it. Ask every single candidate the same structured questions about their past performance. It's more predictive, it's way more fair, and you'll probably find you need a lot fewer interviews to make a great decision. Now, all of these fixes we talked about are important, but they all depend on one single foundational change in how we think about this. This is probably the most crucial takeaway of all. So, why don't companies track their own success? Well, when you ask them, the number one reason they give is that it's just too hard to measure employee performance. They get bogged down in all these complex metrics, and they just give up. But really, that's a cop-out, because you cannot improve what you don't measure. If you have no idea whether the people you pick turn out to be good employees, you can never, ever know if your hiring process actually works. It's really that simple. So forget all the complex performance reviews for a second. The solution might be to just cut through all the noise. And a year later, ask the hiring manager a simple, direct question. Knowing what you know now, would you hire this person all over again? That single piece of data, if you track it over time, could be the first and most important step to finally fixing this broken system,